Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into the sun-scorched sands of medieval Egypt, where the desert stretches endlessly and the heat is relentless. Picture yourself surrounded by dunes that shimmer like gold under a blazing sun, with no air conditioning, no ice-cold drinks, and definitely no sunscreen aisles at the local store. Yet somehow, the people here not only survived, but thrived, carving out a life in one of the harshest climates on Earth. But let's be real, you probably wouldn't survive a week without your modern comforts. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop a comment with your location and local time. It's always cool to see where you're tuning in from. Now dim, the lights maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake up in your mud brick home, the thick walls having kept the interior surprisingly cool overnight. As the first rays of sunlight creep through the small, strategically placed windows, you feel the temperature already starting to rise. Your house is built for this climate-thick walls, made from sun-dried bricks, that insulate against the scorching day and the chilly nights. The windows are narrow, letting in just enough light without inviting the full wrath of the sun. In the center, there's a courtyard open to the sky, where a gentle breeze occasionally stirs the air. You step outside, and the heat hits you like a wave, but you're prepared. You don your loose, light-colored linen garments, which billow around you, allowing your skin to breathe. A cloth wrapped around your head shields your face from the sun's glare, and you're ready to face the day. Staying cool is a matter of survival here, and the medieval Egyptians had some clever tricks up their sleeves. As you walk through the streets, you notice the houses are designed with wind-catcher-style chimney-like structures called malkoff that capture the cooler north winds and funnel them down into the living spaces. It's like natural air conditioning, and as you pass by one, you feel a refreshing draft that makes the heat almost bearable. Inside your own home, you've hung wet linens in the doorways. As the water evaporates, it cools the air passing through, creating a makeshift breeze. It's simple, but effective, and you're grateful for the relief it brings. But let's talk about hygiene, because in a place where water is precious and the heat is constant, staying clean is no small feat. You make your way to the local hammam, the public bathhouse that's a cornerstone of social life here. These aren't just places to wash. They're where people meet, gossip, and even conduct business. As you enter, the air is thick with steam, and the scent of olive oil, soap, and fragrant herbs fills your nostrils. The bathing process is a ritual. First, you sweat in the hot room, letting the heat open your pores. Then you scrub down with a rough cloth, exfoliating away the grime of the desert. Finally, you plunge into a cool pool, the water a shocking but welcome contrast to the heat outside. It's not just about cleanliness. It's about community relaxation and survival. Back at home, you tend to your personal grooming. Hair removal is a big deal here. Both men and women consider body hair unclean, so you carefully shave with a bronze razor, wincing as the blade scrapes against your skin. For those hard-to-reach areas, there's a depilatory cream made from quicklime and arsenic. It's a bit risky, but it gets the job done. Afterward, you apply a mixture of oils and perfumes to keep your skin moisturized and to mask any lingering odors. The dry air can be brutal, and without these precautions, your skin would crack and chap in no time. Your eyes are another concern. The sun's glare is intense, and the dust kicked up by the wind can irritate them. So you reach for your coal, a dark powder made from galena or antimony. With a steady hand, you apply it around your eyes, creating a dramatic look that's both practical and stylish. The kohl reduces the sun's glare, and rumor has it protects against infections. Plus, it makes you look pretty fierce, like a desert warrior ready to take on the day. Imagine trying to apply eyeliner in the middle of the desert without a mirror, though. You'd probably end up looking like a raccoon. But hey, at least your eyes are protected. Now, let's talk about your teeth. Dental hygiene is important even in medieval Egypt. You pull out a small twig from the Salvadora persica tree, known as a miswak. Chewing on it releases natural antibacterial properties that freshen your breath and scrub your teeth clean. It's like nature's toothbrush, and honestly, it's way cooler than your fancy electric one back home. As you work the miswak around your mouth, you can't help but feel a bit smug about how eco-friendly and low-tech this is. But survival isn't just about staying clean and cool. It's also about staying hydrated. Water is life here, and you're careful to conserve every drop. At home, you store water in large clay jars that keep it cool through evaporation. When you're thirsty, you sip from a cup of hibiscus tea, a tart, and refreshing drink made from dried flowers. It's hydrating and packed with vitamins, a perfect antidote to the heat. For meals, you favor foods with high water content, crisp cucumbers, juicy melons, and sweet grapes, all grown along the fertile banks of the Nile. These not only quench your thirst, but also provide the nutrients you need to keep going. As the day wears on, the heat becomes almost unbearable. You've learned to adjust your schedule to avoid the worst of it. In the early morning and late afternoon, you're active, tending to chores, visiting the market, or meeting friends. But during the midday hours, when the sun is at its peak, you retreat indoors for a siesta. It's a time to rest, conserve energy, and wait for the temperature to drop. Sometimes, you even sleep on the rooftop at night, where the air is cooler and the stars stretch out above you like a blanket of diamonds. It's peaceful up there, away from the heat, trapped inside the house, and you drift off to the sound of the desert wind. Of course, protecting your skin from the sun is crucial. You've heard of people using pastes made from sesame oil and beeswax, which supposedly offer some protection. But honestly, you're not sure how effective they are. Historians still argue whether these medieval skincare routines provided adequate defense against the harsh desert sun, or if people suffered from skin conditions as a result. Either way, you slather on the mixture, hoping for the best. And when you're out and about, you carry a parasol made from silk to shield yourself from the direct rays. It's a bit cumbersome, but it's better than baking in the heat. As the day draws to a close, you reflect on how these strange habits, from the architecture of your home to the way you dress, groom, and even sleep, are all adaptations to the desert environment. The medieval Egyptians were masters of survival, using ingenuity and resourcefulness to thrive where others might falter. And as you settle in for the night, the cool breeze from the Malkaf whispering through your room, you can't help but admire their resilience. You might not have their grit, but at least now you know how they did it. Hey guys, welcome back to our journey through medieval Egypt. Last time we survived the brutal desert heat together, but tonight we're diving into the rhythm of daily life amidst the sands. Imagine yourself waking up in this ancient land, the sun just peeking over the horizon, casting long shadows across the dunes. There's no alarm clock buzzing, no coffee machine humming, just the quiet hum of a world that moves at its own pace. Before we get started, take a sec to like the video and subscribe if you're enjoying this. It really helps me out. And drop a comment with your location and local time. I love knowing where you're listening from. Now settle in, maybe grab a blanket, and let's slip into the daily routines of medieval Egypt together. You stir awake in your mud brick home, the air still cool from the night. The thick walls did their job, but you know the heat's coming soon. You don't linger. There's no snooze button here. Instead, you roll off your woven mat, your head resting on a curved wooden headrest instead of a soft pillow. It's strange, right? No fluffy cushions, just a solid block that keeps your head elevated and the bugs at bay. You stretch, feeling the stiffness in your neck, and head outside to greet the day. The sky is turning from pink to gold, and the Nile glints in the distance, promising life in this arid expanse. Your morning starts early because the heat dictates everything. You grab your loose linen tunic light, breathable, perfect for what's ahead, and wrap a cloth around your head. Breakfast isn't a rushed affair. You sit in the courtyard with your family sharing flatbread made from emmer wheat, maybe some dates or figs from the Nile's fertile banks. You sip hibiscus tea, its tartness waking you up as the sun climbs higher. There's no clock ticking, but you feel the rhythm of the day pulling you forward. The goal: get the hard work done before the sun turns the desert into an oven. You head out to your tasks, maybe tending crops along the Nile or crafting goods in the shade of a workshop. The medieval Egyptians were masters of timing, working in the early hours when the air is still crisp. You use a shadoof, a long pole with a bucket to lift water from the river to your fields. It's backbreaking, but it's how you keep the crops alive. The Nile's your lifeline, turning patches of desert into green oases. By mid-morning, the heat's building, and you're already dreaming of the shade. Now here's a mainstream fact to anchor us. Cairo, during the Fatimid and Mamluk periods, was a bustling hub, with markets that hummed with activity. You're there now, weaving through the souk, the marketplace alive, with traders shouting over piles of spices, cloth, and pottery. The air smells of cumin and dust, and you barter for a clay jar to store water at home. These markets were the heartbeat of daily life, connecting villages to cities and keeping the economy alive. You haggle with a merchant, your voice blending into the chaos, and walk away with your prize, feeling the weight of it in your hands. But midday hits, and the sun's relentless. You don't fight it. You adapt. Everyone does. You retreat indoors, the thick walls and small windows keeping the worst of the heat out. This is siesta, time a sacred pause. You lie back in the coolest corner of your home, maybe on a woven rug, and let the world slow down. The kids nap, the animals doze, and even the wind seems to rest. It's not laziness, it's survival. You close your eyes, the hum of cicadas outside lulling you into a light sleep, knowing you'll pick up where you left off when the day cools. Afternoon rolls in, and you're back at it. Maybe you're a scribe scratching ink onto papyrus with a reed pen, or a potter shaping clay by the riverbank. Your hands move with purpose, the light softening as the sun dips. But here's a quirky tidbit to make you smile: they loved their pets, especially cats. You've got a sleek little feline weaving between your legs, purring as you work. Cats weren't just cute. They were sacred, linked to the ancient goddess Bastet, and they kept the rats out of your grain stores. You toss it a scrap of fish, and it's your buddy for life. Imagine that your medieval Egyptian cat ruling the house like a tiny pharaoh. Evening creeps up, and the air finally eases. You gather with neighbors in the courtyard, sharing a meal of lentils, onions, and bread. The kids run around chasing fireflies while you swap stories under the stars. There's no electricity, so oil lamps flicker, casting a warm glow. You might play a game of Sonnet, a board game with sticks for dice, laughing as luck swings back and forth. It's a simple life, but it's rich with connection. The night deepens, and you climb to the rooftop to sleep the cooler air a relief after the day's heat. The stars are your ceiling, and you drift off the desert, whispering around you. But not everything was straightforward. Scholars still debate how much the desert shaped their health. You take care of yourself, rubbing oils into your skin, chewing miswak for your teeth, but the harsh climate took a toll. Some argue they were tough as nails, adapting perfectly to the heat and dust. Others say the lack of water and constant sun led to chronic issues like worn joints or eye problems. You feel fine, but who knows? Maybe that ache in your shoulder is more than just the shutoff's fault. Your day's done, and you've lived it their way, rising with the sun, resting when it blazed, and winding down as it set. From the marketplace bustle to the quiet of the rooftop, these routines were a dance with the desert practical, yet sprinkled with oddities like cat worship and wooden headrests. As you close your eyes, the night air brushing your face, you can't help but marvel at how they made it work one sunrise at a time. Hey guys, welcome back to our journey through medieval Egypt. In Section 1, we braved the scorching desert sands and learned how people survived the harsh environment. Then in Section 2, we stepped into their homes and markets to uncover the rhythm of their daily routines, waking with the sun baking bread and trading goods under the Nile's watchful gaze. Now in Section 3, we're diving deeper into the fabric of this ancient world. Tonight, we're exploring the social hierarchy that shaped medieval Egyptian life. Picture yourself in this bustling society where your place on the social ladder dictated everything from the clothes on your back to the dreams you dared to chase. Before we begin, take a moment to like this video and subscribe if you're enjoying the ride. It really helps me keep this going. Drop a comment with your location and local time too. I love hearing where you're tuning in from. Now grab a cozy blanket, settle in, and let's unravel the social structure of medieval Egypt together. A glimpse into the social pyramid. Imagine standing in a crowded marketplace, the air buzzing with voices and thick with the scent of cumin and coriander. As your eyes wander, you notice the stark differences among the people around you. Some strut by in flowing linens adorned with gold, while others shuffle past in rough tunics, their shoulders bent under heavy sacks. This is your first hint at the social hierarchy of medieval Egypt's system, as rigid and towering as the pyramids themselves. At the very top sits the pharaoh, a figure both king and deity. He's not just a ruler. He's the living bridge between the gods and humanity, his every decree rippling through the land like the Nile's floods. The pharaoh's power is absolute, his palaces gleam with opulence, and his word shapes the destiny of the kingdom. But even a god-king doesn't govern alone. Enter the vizier, his right-hand man. Think of him as a prime minister with a scroll and a stern gaze. Often hailing from a noble lineage, the vizier oversees the kingdom's administration, ensuring taxes are collected, laws are enforced, and the pharaoh's will is carried out. Below this lofty duo are the nobility and priests, two pillars of privilege. Nobles are the landowning elite, their wealth tied to vast estates worked by others' hands. They hold sway in government and military circles, their lives cushioned by luxury. Priests, meanwhile, tend to the spiritual heartbeat of Egypt. They manage sprawling temple complexes, perform rituals to appease the gods, and wield influence that rivals even the nobles, thanks to religion's central role in society. Next in line are the scribes and sung heroes, armed with reed pens and papyrus. In a world where literacy is a rare gift, their ability to read, write, and calculate makes them indispensable. They record harvests, draft royal decrees, and keep the wheels of bureaucracy turning. Scribes often serve the government or temples, and their skills can sometimes lift them beyond their birth status, a rare crack in the social ceiling. Further down, you find the artisans and craftsmen, the creators of Egypt's enduring beauty. Potters shape clay into vessels. Weavers thread linen into cloth. And architects dream up temples that touch the sky. Their work fuels both the economy and the culture, earning them respect, though not always wealth. At the base of this pyramid lie the peasants and slaves. Peasants, the vast majority, are farmers tied to the land. They rise before dawn to sow wheat, barley, and flax, their labor feeding the nation. Their lives are simple mud brick homes, bread and beer diets, and little room for rest. Slaves, often prisoners of war or born into bondage, occupy the lowest rung. They toil in fields, quarries, or households, their lives defined by servitude and scant hope of freedom. How social status shaped life. Your place in this hierarchy wasn't just a label, it was your entire world. If you're a noble, you wake in a sprawling villa, servants bustling to bring you dates and honeyed wine. Your wardrobe boasts fine linens and turquoise necklaces, your days filled with feasts or overseeing your estates. Compare that to a peasant's life, a cramped hut, a breakfast of coarse bread, and endless hours under the sun coaxing crops from the soil. Remember those daily routines from Section 2. They varied wildly by status. While a noble might spend an afternoon lounging by the Nile, a peasant's leisure was repairing a broken plow or weaving a basket after dusk. Social standing also locked in your opportunities or lack thereof. Education, for instance, was a privilege of the elite. Noble and wealthy children attended scribal schools, mastering hieroglyphs and mathematics, paving the way to powerful roles. For peasant kids, such dreams were out of reach. Their education was learning the plow from their fathers. Even marriage reflected this divide. Nobles wed to cement alliances, their ceremonies lavish with music and offerings. Peasants paired off with practical matches, their unions marked by little fanfare. Yet there were glimmers of mobility. A gifted scribe might climb into the vizier's circle, his quill opening doors. An artisan's masterpiece could catch a noble's eye, earning patronage and a step up. These stories, though, were exceptions in a system built to hold people in place. Quirky beliefs and amulets. Let's lighten things up with a quirky twist. Across all classes, Egyptians clung to the magic of amulets, tiny talismans, believed to ward off evil or summon luck. A peasant might wear a clay scarab etched with a prayer tucked beneath their tunic as they worked. A noble might flaunt a gold ankh studded with lapis lazuli, a stylish shield against misfortune. These charms reveal a shared thread of superstition, a belief that the unseen world could be swayed with the right token. A scholarly debate: mobility or rigidity. Historians still wrestle with a big question: how flexible was this hierarchy? Some point to tales of scribes and craftsmen who rose from humble roots, arguing that talent could occasionally trump birth. They cite records of peasants turned officials or soldiers honored into nobility. Others push back, insisting the system was a locked vault. They argue that birth dictated destiny for most, with mobility, a rare fluke drowned out by a sea of inherited roles. The truth likely dances between these views, rigid for the masses, but with just enough cracks to keep hope alive. Connecting the threads. This social ladder ties right back to what we've explored before. In Section 1, we saw how desert survival demanded cooperation, peasants hauling water nobles funding wells. In Section 2, daily routines hinged on status, a scribe's day of writing tallies differed from a slave's grind. Here in Section 3, we see why. Your rung on the hierarchy didn't just shape your tasks, it defined your identity, your limits, and your legacy. Reflections by the Nile. As the sun dips below the horizon, painting the Nile gold, you linger in the marketplace's fading hum. The nobles retreat to their villas, the peasants to their huts, each carrying the weight of their place. Overhead, stars prick the sky, indifferent to the human order below. You head home, be it a grand estate or a modest dwelling, and ponder the night's lessons. In medieval Egypt, the social hierarchy was more than a structure. It was the pulse of a civilization, beating through every life it touched. Hey guys, welcome back to our journey through medieval Egypt. So far, we've braved the scorching deserts, peeked into the daily lives of bustling households, and climbed the ladder of their social hierarchy, from the pharaoh's divine throne to the dusty fields of the humble farmer. Tonight we're stepping into a world even more mysterious and awe-inspiring, the spiritual realm that pulsed through every corner of this ancient civilization. Imagine yourself standing before a grand temple, its towering columns, casting long shadows as the scent of incense swirls around you. The gods are near, their whispers carried on the warm breeze. Before we dive in, take a moment to like this video and subscribe if you're enjoying our adventure. It means the world to me. Drop a comment with your location and local time too. I'd love to know where you're joining me from. Now, grab a cozy blanket, maybe light a candle for that perfect glow, and let's explore the religion and spirituality of medieval Egypt together. You step forward, your sandals brushing against the smooth stone of the temple courtyard. The noise of the outside world, the clatter of carts, the shouts of traders fades into a hushed stillness. The walls around you are covered in hieroglyphs, each carving a silent prayer to the divine. The Egyptians were polytheistic, meaning they worshiped many gods and goddesses, each one a master of some vital part of life. The sun's journey across the sky, that was a god's doing. The Nile's life-giving flood, another deity's gift. Nothing happened by chance here. The gods were the heartbeat of existence. Let's meet a few of these divine figures. At the top shines Ra, the sun god, his blazing light a symbol of life itself. You can almost feel his golden warmth as you stand here watching the priests raise their voices in hymns to guide him across the heavens. Then there's Isis, the mother goddess, her gentle power woven into tales of love and magic. They say her tears of sorrow for her husband Osiris swelled the Nile each year, a flood that brought green to the desert we explored in Section 1. And speaking of Osiris, is the Lord of the underworld a figure of death and rebirth? His promise of eternal life gave hope to everyone, from the pharaoh we met in our hierarchy to the laborers who tilled the fields. These gods weren't just lofty ideas painted on walls. They were part of your everyday world, as familiar as the routines we uncovered in Section 2. Imagine waking up at dawn, the air still cool from the desert night. You'd kneel before a tiny clay statue of Thoth, the ibis-headed god of wisdom, asking for a sharp mind as you head to scribal school. Or maybe you'd leave a bit of fish for Bastet the cat goddess, hoping she'd keep the mice away from your grain stores. The gods were your neighbors, your protectors, always close at hand. Now let's talk about the people who bridge the gap between you and the divine, the priests. These weren't just holy men muttering prayers. They were pillars of society as vital as the nobles we discussed in Section 3. Dressed in crisp white linen, their heads shaved smooth, they spent their days performing rituals to keep the gods happy and the world spinning. They were more than spiritual guides. They were scholars who tracked the stars, healers who brewed remedies, and keepers of ancient knowledge. Here's a quirky tidbit to make you smile. Priests had to be spotlessly pure. They bathed 2 or 3 times a day in sacred pools, avoided foods like fish or beans that were thought unclean, and shaved every inch of their body's head to stay ritually clean. Imagine the effort. No wonder they were so respected. The temples where these priests worked were breathtaking. Think of Karnak or Luxor sprawling complexes that were like cities of their own. You could wander for hours through their halls past towering statues of gods and walls etched with stories of creation. These weren't just places to pray. They were the beating heart of the community. Thousands worked here, stonecutters, scribes, farmers tending temple lands, making them economic powerhouses as well as spiritual ones. Here's a mainstream fact to anchor us. Building a temple was a colossal task, often taking decades and the sweat of countless hands. These structures didn't just honor the gods. They fed the people, too, redistributing food and goods to those who served them. But you didn't need to visit a temple to feel the gods' presence. It followed you home. In your mud brick house, tucked in a corner, you might have a small shrine, a shelf with a statue of Bes, the goofy-looking protector of families, or Hathor, the goddess of joy. You'd leave offerings. There may be a crust of bread, a splash of beer, whispering thanks for a good day. And when the big festivals rolled around like the Opet festival, the whole town came alive. Picture it, statues of the gods carried high on golden boats, the streets filled with singing, dancing, and the scent of roasted meat. It was a celebration that tied everyone together, from the highest priest to the simplest farmer. Let's drift now into a topic that obsessed the Egyptians: the afterlife. They believed death wasn't the end, but a doorway. When you died, your heart faced a test weighed against the feather of Mot, the goddess of truth and justice. If it balanced proof of a good life, you'd enter the field of reeds, a paradise where the Nile flowed forever and the crops never failed. If it didn't, a fearsome creature named Ammit devoured your soul. This belief shaped everything, especially their burial customs. You've heard of mummies, right? They wrap bodies in linen, pack them with amulets, and tuck them into tombs, with all they'd need for eternity: food, jewelry, even little servant statues called Ushabti to work for you in the next world. It was a journey they planned for their whole lives. Here's something scholars love to debate: the role of women in all this. Some say women, especially priestesses, wielded real power in religion. High priestesses of Hathor or Isis might have led grand rituals, their voices rising in sacred chants. Others argue their roles were smaller, limited to singing or tending home altars, with men dominating the temples. The truth: it probably depended on the era and the place. Sometimes women stood tall, sometimes they stayed in the shadows. Either way, they were part of the spiritual fabric, their prayers as vital as anyone's. As you step out of the temple, now the sun sinking below the horizon, you feel the weight of it all. The gods, the rituals, the temples, they weren't just beliefs. They were the glue holding medieval Egypt together. They guided the pharaohs, rule, blessed the farmer's harvest, and promised a tomorrow beyond the grave. The desert might test you. The daily grind might wear you down, but the divine was always there, a thread connecting every life we've explored so far. So as you close your eyes tonight, let the echoes of ancient hymns lull you to sleep. In medieval Egypt, the gods were never far away. Hey there, sleepy travelers. Welcome back to our twilight trek through medieval Egypt. So far, we've braved the scorching desert sands in Section 1, learning how folks outsmarted the sun and survived on the edge of nowhere. In Section 2, we peeked into their daily lives, kneading dough, at dawn bartering under the Nile's watchful eye, and resting as the stars blinked awake. Section 3 unveiled their social ladder from the pharaoh's golden perch to the farmer's muddy toes. And just last time in Section 4, we wandered through their sacred temples, feeling the hum of prayers to gods who shaped their world. Now, as the moon climbs high, Section 5 beckons us into a shadowy, herb-scented corner of their lives, the healing arts. Picture this, a flickering lamp, a healer's steady hands, and a whiff of mystery in the air. Before we dive in, grab a cozy blanket, and maybe a mug of something warm chamomile perhaps, and let's unravel the secrets of how medieval Egyptians mended their bodies and souls. Imagine you're sprawled on a woven mat, the cool stone floor, a balm against the day's heat. Above you hovers a healer, their eyes sharp with wisdom, their fingers nimble as they rummage through clay jars and linen pouches. You've got a scratch from a tumble in the market, or a tooth that's howling like a desert wind. No shiny tools or white coats here, just a figure draped in a simple tunic chanting softly as they dab a sticky golden goo on your skin. This, my friends, is medieval Egyptian medicine, a curious mix of natures, gifts clever know-how, and a dash of magic that could make even the grumpiest crocodile smile. Let's set the scene with some history. These folks weren't just winging it. They were medical pioneers, their tricks and tonics echoing from ancient times right into the medieval days we're exploring. They had specialists for everything: eye doctors who could soothe a sand-stung squint tooth pullers who tackled rogue molars, and even healers for, well, the backside blues. Their playbook, the Eber's Papyrus, a scroll from around 1550 BCE that was still a big deal centuries later. Picture it, a long, crinkly sheet packed with over 700 remedies for coughs, cuts, and even the odd crocodile nip. They wielded bronze tools for surgeries, think setting a snapped arm, or stitching a gash hand had a grip on how blood flowed through the body. But here's the twist: they didn't stop at the stuff you could see. Healing was a duet of herbs and hocus pocus with gods like Sekhmet, the lion-headed healer, and Thoth, the ibis-faced wise guy, joining the party via spells and amulets. It was a world where science and spirit twirled together under the desert stars. Now suppose you've sliced your hand, wrestling a stubborn reed basket. The healer doesn't reach for a spray or a pill. They scoop out honey, thick and gleaming like liquid sunshine. Why, it's a germ-fighting marvel, perfect for keeping nasty bugs out of your wound. They'd smear it on, wrap it tight with linen, and let it do its sweet work. Got a headache that won't quit. They'd grind up willow leaves nature's aspirin, mix it with water, and have you sip it slow. These cures weren't random. They were rooted in sharp observation, and plenty hold up today. Garlic was another: starch-hued raw, or mashed into a paste. It zapped infections with a kick we now know is science-approved. These Egyptians were wizards with what the earth gave them, even if they chalked it up to divine favors. but hold on, some of their fixes were, let's say, eyebrow raising. Feeling a cough rattle your chest, the healer might whip up a paste from a ground-up mouse-yep whiskers, and all mixed with a pinch of herbs. The logic A. Mouse's zippy energy could scare that cough right out of you. Did it work? Probably not, but it's a quirky glimpse into their wild imagination. Or picture this. A fever's got you sweating buckets, and they plop a poultice of crocodile dung on your brow, betting the beast's strength would bully the sickness away. Gross, sure. But it shows how they saw power in every critter and clump ready to harness it for health. This healing hustle ties right back to what we've seen before. Remember Section 2, with its sunrise to sunset grind? Staying well was part of that rhythm, knowing when to dodge the sun sip from the river or hobble to the healer's hut. And from Section 3's social pecking order, who got the best care wasn't random either. The wealthy could summon top-notch healers, while the farmer might settle for a neighbor's handed-down remedy. But the real bridge shines through from Section 4's religion. Many healers were priests, their medical smarts steeped in temple teachings. Sickness wasn't just a body thing, it was a cosmic hiccup, a sign the gods were miffed or testing you. So fixing a fever meant pleasing the divine crew too, with chants and charms as vital as any herb. Let's linger on that magic bit because it's juicy and debated. Healers didn't just patch you up. They battled invisible foes. They'd mutter spells, wave incense, or tie an amulet around your neck to shoo away evil spirits blamed for your sniffles. A priest healer might call on Isis, the nurturing goddess, to hug a sick kid back to health, or ask Horus to glare down a lurking plague. This wasn't fluff, it was as real to them as the honey on your cut. Scholars tussle over it, though. Some say it proves their medicine was half-baked, all superstition and no substance. Others argue it was mind medicine calming fears, sparking hope, and maybe even nudging the body to fight harder. Likely it was both a lifeline in a world where the unknown loomed large, paired with a knack for practical fixes. Who were these healers anyway? Some were temple-trained priests, their heads stuffed with sacred scrolls and their hands steady from years of practice. They'd tweak your diet order a nap or slice open a boil with a steady flick. Women shown here, 2 midwives, coaxing babies into the world, herbalists brewing teas from garden scraps. Even barbers got in on it, yanking teeth or lancing lumps with a grin. It was a craft for anyone brave enough to try, though the priestly lot often led the charge, their status from Section 3 and faith from Section 4 giving them clout. Back on that mat, the healers done their dance. They've dabbed your wound, whispered a prayer, and slipped a tiny charm into your palm, a beetle carved in stone meant to guard you through the night. You rise the air still humming with incense and step into the dusk feeling patched up in more ways than one. This wasn't just about a quick fix-it, it was about balance, about keeping the gods happy and the world spinning right. So as we wind down, this tale lets marvel at medieval Egypt's healing arts. A blend of honeyed smarts, mousy madness, and starry-eyed faith. They patched cuts, soothed fevers, and wrestled spirits, all with a flair that's half science, half story. Now with the night wrapping around us, let those ancient hands rock you to sleep. Next time, we'll stroll through the noisy markets and winding trade routes that tied this land to far-off places. For now, sweet dreams, and may Sekhmet watch over you till dawn. Hey there, friends. Welcome back to our nightly wander through medieval Egypt. If you've been tagging along, we've already crossed deserts, peeked into busy homes, climbed their social ladder, marveled at their temples, and just last time we lingered in the glow of their healing arts. Honey on wounds, mouse paste for coughs and all. That was a wild ride, wasn't it? Tonight we're easing into something a little lighter, a bit more playful. We're stepping out of the healer's shadowy den and into the open air, where medieval Egyptians kicked back, laughed and enjoyed life's quieter moments. This is the world of their leisure pursuits, a mix of games, music, and good company that'll feel both foreign and familiar. So grab your favorite blanket, maybe a cup of something soothing, and let's dive into how these folks unwound under the same stars we see tonight. Oh, and if you're loving this, hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment with where you're tuning in from. I'd love to picture you all out there. Let's set the scene. The sun's dipping low, painting the Nile gold, and the day's work harvesting wheat, hauling water, or scribbling accounts is finally done. You're free, and the evening stretches ahead like an invitation. For medieval Egyptians, leisure wasn't just a luxury. It was a rhythm woven into life, a chance to recharge and connect. Think of it as their version of Netflix and chill, but with more sand and fewer screens. They didn't have gadgets or stadiums, but they had ingenuity and a knack for fun that turned simple things, stick stones, or a tune into hours of joy. And just like we saw in their healing arts, there's a blend of the practical and the spirited here, a balance that keeps popping up in everything they did. What did fun look like? Let's start with games, though. They loved their games. One standout was Senate, a board game, so old it stretched back to ancient times, yet still a hit in medieval Egypt. Picture a grid of 30 squares pawns, moving based on the toss of sticks, their version of dice and rules that could shift from friendly bets to deep symbolism. Some say it mimicked the soul's journey through the afterlife, with every move a dance with fate. Kids played it on scratched-out boards in the dirt, while the wealthy had fancy sets carved from ivory or faience, those glossy blue tiles we'd drool over today. It was strategy, luck, and a little trash talk, universal ingredients for a good time. Connecting to Section 3. Your status might decide your board's bling, but the fun that crossed all lines. Then there was hounds and jackals. Another game with a board and pegs shaped like animal headhounds chasing jackals across a track. It's like their take on a medieval road trip, only with more pawns and less arguing over directions. Archaeologists have dug up these sets, showing how widespread it was. Kids, farmers, even priests might have huddled around it, laughing as someone's hound got stuck. These games weren't just play. They sharpened wits and built bonds. A thread we'll see running through their leisure, like the Nile through their land. Now let's shift to something livelier, music and dance. After a long day, you might hear a lute's twang or a flute's breathy call drifting over the village. Musicians plucked strings on harps or tapped rhythms on drums, made from stretched hides, simple but soulful. Picture a gathering by the riverbank, men and women, swaying feet, kicking up dust hands, clapping to a beat that's been echoing for centuries. Dance wasn't stiff or formal. It was free, a release. Women might swirl with acrobatic flips, while men stomped in circles, joy spilling out under the moon. This ties back to Section 4, religion, often danced alongside fun. Festivals for gods like Hathor, the Lady of Music, and Love turned towns into stages with everyone joining in. Priests might lead chants, but the crowd owned the rhythm. Storytelling was another gem. Imagine sitting in a circle, the night air cool, as an elder spins a tale, maybe about Anubis outsmarting a thief, or a fisherman wrestling a river spirit. These weren't just yarns. They carried lessons, history, and a dash of magic. Kids hung on every word, while adults nodded half lost in memory. It's not hard to see the link to Section Two's daily life storytelling turned downtime into something shared away to pass wisdom over bread and beer. And like their healing spells, there was that sprinkle of the supernatural, keeping the unseen close. Food and drink spiced up the fun too. After games or a dance, you might share a meal flatbread's lentils, maybe fish grilled over a fire. Beer was the star brewed thick and tangy from barley, sipped from clay cups. It wasn't just refreshment, it was glue for good times. The wealthy might splash out with wine or dates stuffed with nuts, showing off a bit hello Section 3 again. But even the humblest feast felt rich with chatter and laughter. This wasn't solo snacking, it was communal, a chance to swap stories and unwind together. Sports popped up, too rough and ready. Wrestling was big two guys grappling in the sand, cheered by a rowdy crowd. It wasn't fancy, but it flexed strength and grit traits prized in a world of hard labor. Archery contests doubled as fun and practice, since bows kept both game and foes at bay. Kids raced boats, made of reeds, on the Nile, splashing and shouting, while adults might bet on who'd sink first. These weren't polished Olympics, but they echoed the hands-on spirit we saw in their healing. Practical roots, with a playful twist. How does this all connect? Think back to Section 1's vast landscapes. Those open spaces begged for activity, from riverside dances to games under palm trees. Section 2's routines left room for these breaks, a reward for the grind. Social rank from Section 3 flavored it nobles had shinier toys, but fun was universal. And Section 5's healers, they'd approve of laughter and movement as medicine for the soul. Religion from Section 4 wove through it all. Gods blessed the games, inspired the songs, and smiled on the feasts. It's that same tapestry, body, spirit, and community stitched tight. So who joined in? Everyone. Kids chased each other, with sticks giggling over made-up rules. Women sang while grinding grain, turning work into play. Men diced away, an evening boasting over Senate wins. Elders watched their stories, keeping the past alive. No one was too busy, or too grand. Leisure was a right, not a privilege. Even slaves or laborers might snag a moment to toss sticks or hum a tune, proving joy doesn't care about rank. As we wind down, picture yourself, their one last dance by the fire, the lute fading your belly, full of bread and beer. The night's deep, now stars sharp overhead, and you're part of something timeless. Medieval Egyptians didn't just survive. They thrived, finding light in the everyday. Next time, we'll roam their markets, tracing trade routes that spun their world wider. For now, let their laughter lull you to sleep. Sweet dreams, and may Hathor's music carry you till morning. Hello, dreamers and starry-eyed explorers. Welcome back to our magical journey through medieval Egypt, where the sands whisper secrets and the Nile hums lullabies. If you've been with me, we've already trekked across scorching deserts, peeked into busy homes, scaled the ranks of society, knelt in sacred temples, stirred potions with curious healers, and twirled through nights of games and song. Each chapter has spun a thread of this ancient tapestry, and tonight we're stepping into the lively beating heart of it all. Trade. Imagine a marketplace bursting with color, the air spiced with mystery, and boats bobbing on the Nile, their holds brimming with wonders. This is where survival meets sparkle, where daily life turns to treasure, and where the world stretches wide. So tuck in, sip something warm, maybe a hint of honeyed mint, and let's dive into the markets and trade routes that made medieval Egypt a hub of marvels. Close your eyes and step with me into a souk marketplace, alive with the pulse of 1,000 lives. The sun blazes overhead, glinting off stalls, piled high with treasures, rolls of linen soft as a breeze, jars of oil that shimmer like liquid gold, and baskets of dates so plump they promise sweetness in every bite. The air dances with scent scummin tickling your nose, coriander weaving through, and a whiff of salt carried from distant shores. Traders call out their voices, a symphony of haggling, some in languages you can't quite catch. This is no ordinary market. It's a whirlwind of survival and splendor, a daily hum we saw in Section 2, where folks traded for bread pots or a new pair of sandals. But here it's grandeur web of commerce stretching beyond the horizon, linking Egypt to lands far and wide. Let's chase that web across the sands. Trade routes unfurl like ribbons winding through deserts and overseas. The Silk Road, that legendary path from China to the Mediterranean, brushes Egypt's, edges its silks and secrets passing through. Spice routes curl in, too laden with pepper cinnamon and tales of distant bazaars. Remember, Section 1's unforgiving deserts. Traders conquered those sands, their caravans swaying with camels, stubborn snuffling beasts that carried Egypt's lifeblood. These were no mere merchants. They were desert sailors, navigating by starlight and grit. And what they brought, gold nuggets from Nubia, papyrus reeds from the Niles, embrace glass so delicate it glowed like trapped sunlight. Then there were the oddities, parrots that squawked in foreign tongues, minerals that sparkled or fizzed, even mummies traded as curiosities with a hint of magic. Strange, whimsical, and oh so true. These traders weren't alone in their quests. Wealthy merchants, high on the social ladder from Section 3, funded these ventures, their purses growing fat with every caravan's return. They mingled with nobles, their clout shaping the land's fate. Yet the suku was a great equalizer. Here a farmer with a sack of onions could barter with a silk-draped tycoon, their voices blending in the chaos. Status softened, if just for a moment, as everyone hunted the same prize, a clever trade. Money. Well, it jingled gold dinars, and silver dirhams clinked in pouches, but barter ruled the day. A basket of grain might snag you a clay lamp. A length of cloth could fetch a jug of oil. It was a system born of necessity, bending with the times. And who kept it spinning? Women often unsung, but oh so vital. They wove cloth, brewed beer, and yes, traded with the best of them. Some say they were the market's quiet queens, their stalls buzzing with life. Others argue tradition boxed them in. Likely, it was both. Some women shone as traders, their wits winning coin and respect, while others worked behind the scenes. Their touch was everywhere, a hidden thread in this bustling fabric. Now, let's weave this tale back to what we've seen. Those healing herbs from Section 5. The ones that soothed fevers and mended bones. Many drifted in on foreign winds, their scents a gift from afar. The games and tunes from Section 6. They borrowed from travelers, blending rhythms and rules into something new. Even Section 4's religion, tied in temples, weren't just for prayer. They were economic engines. Their altars piled with offerings, their priests juggling wealth like sacred coins. Trade wasn't just stuff. It was stories, beliefs, and dreams swapped under the sun. Stroll with me to a stall heaped with papyrus. This isn't mere paper, it's Egypt's voice. Scribes from Section 3's rank scratched on it their words, carving history and law. But it was also a star export sailing off to distant lands, a piece of the Nile in every roll. Nearby, a glassblower crafts a vial, its hues swirling like a desert dusk. Glass, too, was a gem of trade, its elegance prized from Rome to India, and the textiles. linen so fine it floated dyed in colors that sang of river and sky. These were Egypt's envoys carrying her soul across the earth. Trade had its perils, though. Pirates prowled the waves, bandits haunted the dunes, and taxes nibbled at profits. Yet it flourished, balanced by royal oversight and local cunning. The pharaoh and his vizier watched closely, their treasuries swollen with tolls. Too tight a grip and trade withered. Too loose and disorder crept in. They found the sweet spot, and the markets sang. As twilight falls, the souk quiets. Traders fold their wares, the air stills, and the Nile mirrors the stars. This vibrant hub isn't just an end, it's a beginning. The riches it birthed didn't just line pockets. They raised wonders temples that pierced the heavens' tombs that mocked time itself. Next time, we'll wander those marvels, tracing the architecture that still stands in silent awe. For now, linger here in the fading glow, with spice on the breeze and whispers of what's to come. So, sleepy travelers, as you slip into dreams, picture yourself a trader beneath these stars, your sleep woven with silk and spice. Medieval Egypt's trade was a vast, wondrous dance, and you've swayed through it with me tonight. Sweet dreams, and may your rest be as rich as a caravan's haul. Hey there, sleepyheads. Welcome back to our cozy journey through medieval Egypt. Last night, we left you in the bustling markets and along the winding trade routes of Section 7, where merchants haggled over silks and spices, and camel caravans stretched across the desert like ribbons in the wind. We saw how those exchanges brought not just goods, but a sprinkle of magic from far-off lands, filling the purses of the wealthy and the imaginations of all. Tonight, we're going to see where that wealth and wonder landed right into the colors, shapes, and stones of medieval Egyptian art and architecture. These weren't just pretty things to look at. They were stories carved and painted, dreams made solid, whispering tales of faith, power, and a touch of enchantment. So tuck in tight, maybe sip something warm, and let's drift into this world of beauty under a starry desert sky. Picture yourself standing by the Nile as the sun dips low, painting the water gold and pink. Ahead rises the Al-Azhar Mosque, a gem from the Fatimid days, its minarets stretching up like fingers brushing the heavens. Its walls shimmer with carvings, swirls, and stars that seem to hum with secrets. Or imagine the Citadel of Cairo, a Mamluk masterpiece, its domes gleaming like giant pearls atop a fortress of stone. These weren't just places to pray or plan. They were wonders where architects danced with chisels and tiles, crafting spaces that made hearts skip and jaws drop. Ever heard of Macaronas? They're those stalactite vaults that drip from ceilings like honeycombs of stone, catching the light and making you feel like you're floating in a dream. And the the tiles. Blues deep as midnight greens, bright as palm fronds laid out in patterns that twist and turn like a river song. These buildings still stand today, centuries later, murmuring tales to anyone who'll listen. Now let's peek at something a bit quirkier, something to tickle your sleepy mind. Have you ever noticed how animals prance through their art? Lions roar from wall carvings, falcons soar in painted skies, and sometimes you'll spot a griffin half lion, half eagle guarding a doorway with a mischievous grin. These weren't just decorations. They were symbols with souls. A lion might watch over a sultan's tomb, fierce and proud, while a falcon, sharp-eyed Horus reborn, kept the land safe. Then there were the little charms, scarabs, and ankhs, those cross-like keys to life tucked into corners or etched on pots. They were tiny spells warding off bad luck or calling down blessings. Imagine strolling through a grand hall, brushing past a painted gazelle or a lotus flower in stone, feeling the air buzz with ancient magic. In medieval Egypt, art didn't just sit there, it reached out, wrapped you up, and made you part of its story. But here's where the wise ones start to bicker, their voices echoing like a market squabble. How much of this beauty was Egypt's own, and how much came sneaking in from afar? Some scholars point to the arches and say, "Those look Persian." Others squint at the mosaics and mutter, "Byzantine for sure." It's a tug of war over who gets the credit, a puzzle about whether Egypt stood tall on its own or sipped from a cultural stew. Truth is, it's a bit of both. Remember, Section 7. With all that trade, ships and caravans didn't just carry gold. They brought ideas, sketches, and tricks of the trade. Yet Egypt had a way of taking those gifts and making them its own, mixing foreign flair with its gods and glyphs until something new sparkled in the sand. It's a question that dances through history, a land of crossroads, yes, but with a heartbeat all its own. Let's tie this back to Section 3, where we climbed the ladder of their social world. Those grand mosques and towering citadels, they didn't sprout from the desert on their own. The elite sultans, viziers, rich traders with jingling purses ordered them built, splashing their wealth to leave a mark on time. Picture a sultan robe swirling, nodding at a blueprint and saying, "Make it grander." The artists and builders ranged from nameless stone chippers to masters whose names rang through bazaars. It was a world where rank mattered, just like we saw before. But the beauty they made that spoke to everyone from the highest throne to the humblest hut. And oh, how it links to Section 4's Tales of Faith. These weren't just buildings or pictures. They were prayers you could touch. Mosques and temples wore their stories on their sleeves, with walls shouting scenes from the Quran or whispering myths of Isis and Osiris. Every curve of a dome, every stroke of a brush was a nod to the divine. Even in a simple home, you might find a wooden panel carved with a sun disk or a crescent moon, a quiet thank you to the gods watching overhead. It's as if all of Egypt was a canvas, and religion held the paintbrush, splashing holiness across the land. Imagine you're a kid, trailing a master builder, dust in your hair, and wonder in your eyes. The mosque is half done, all clatter and clang, and he's pointing at a column saying, "See how it bends, that's strength and grace together." You nod, but you're dreaming of the market where your last coin will buy a sticky date or a honeyed cake. It's a place where the sacred meets the sweet, where even a child's footsteps echo with the hum of creation, and those macarnas up there dripping like stone icicles. I bet the builders chuckled. Look, we've tricked the sky into staying indoors. It's a flex from centuries past, and we're still oohing and aahing like kids at a puppet show. Let's linger a little longer, because there's more to dream about. Think of the artists hunched over their work, lamplight flickering as they traced a falcon's wing or chipped a star into stone. They poured their days into these wonders, blending sweat and skill until the desert bloomed with beauty. Or picture a family gathered in a courtyard, the kids chasing shadows, while their parents gaze up at a tiled wall, its colors glowing in the dusk. It wasn't just the rich who felt this art was woven into the heartbeat of every village, every city, a thread tying them all together. As the night grows deep and the stars wink like old friends, let's wrap ourselves in this world a moment more. Medieval Egyptian art and architecture weren't just clever tricks of stone and paint. They were love letters to the gods, to the Nile, to the people who dreamed them up. They prove that even in a land of sand and sun, beauty can take root and stretch toward forever. Next time, Well, tiptoe into the halls of learning where scholars scribbled and students puzzled beneath these very domes. But for now, let the blues and greens, the lions and falcons cradle you into sleep. Sweet dreams, little travelers, may your night be as serene as a minaret under the moon. Hey there, little scholars. Welcome back to our bedtime journey through medieval Egypt. Last night, we marveled at the stunning art and towering architecture pyramids piercing the sky and paintings glowing with stories of old. But have you ever wondered how those brilliant minds learned to craft such wonders? Tonight we're stepping into the world of medieval Egyptian education, a magical realm of papyrus scrolls, reed pens, and lessons that shaped a civilization. So snuggle up, maybe grab a warm drink, and let's wander into the classrooms and learning halls of a time long ago. A seat in the scribe school. Picture this. You're sitting cross-legged on a woven mat, the cool stone floor beneath you, a sweet escape from the desert sun blazing outside. The walls around you are alive with hieroglyphs, curvy birds, watchful eyes and reeds that seem to sway in an invisible breeze, each symbol a secret waiting to be unlocked. A teacher stands before you, stern yet kind, wrapped in a simple linen robe. In one hand, he holds a scroll, its edges curling like a treasure map. In the other, a reed pen poised like a wand. The air hums with the scent of ink and papyrus mingling with the soft chant of students reciting their lessons. This is no ordinary place. This is where young minds were molded, where the mysteries of the universe were handed down like precious gifts. Lessons under the desert sun. In medieval Egypt, education wasn't for everyone. It was a privilege, mostly for the sons of the elite, those destined to become scribes, priests, or officials. But don't imagine it as all dusty rules and frowns. These lucky learners dove into a world of wonders. They mastered hieroglyphs, the sacred script that danced across walls and scrolls carrying the power of the gods. They tackled mathematics, a skill as vital as water in the desert. Numbers helped them measure fields, after the Nile's floods calculate taxes, and even predict when the river would swell again. Geometry was their secret weapon for designing temples and tombs, every angle and line a tribute to the divine. And then there were the religious text tales of Osiris rising from the dead Isis, weaving her magic, and Ra sailing his sunboat across the sky. These weren't just stories. They were lessons that tied their minds to the heavens. Scribbles on shards and scrolls. Now let's talk tools. These students didn't have notebooks or fancy pens. For practice, they used ostraca-broken bits of pottery or stones scattered around like puzzle pieces from the past. Imagine scratching your ABCs onto a chunk of an old pot. These shards were cheap and everywhere perfect for doodling hieroglyphs or working out sums until your hand cramped. It was a clever trick, showing how resourceful these ancient learners could be. Each mistake scratched out was a step closer to perfection. But when it was time for the real deal, they graduated to papyrus mouth sheets made from the pith of the papyrus plant. With reed pens dipped in ink, a mix of soot and water, they wrote with care, their strokes steady, as they captured the world's stories. It was an art, a dance of patience and precision. Who got to learn? Remember the social ladder we climbed in Section 3, from pharaohs to farmers. Education followed those same steps. The sons of nobles and rich merchants went to proper schools, often tucked inside temples or palaces. There they were groomed to rule trade or serve the gods. But it wasn't a locked door for everyone else. Some bright boys from poorer families got a shot. Two temples sometimes scooped up talented kids, hoping to train the next great scribe or priest. It was a rare ladder to climb, a chance to turn cleverness into a better life. Still, for most folks, farmers, laborers, the everyday dreamers, education stayed out of reach, a luxury for those with time and gold to spare. A quirky tidbit: pots of practice. Here's a fun little secret: those ostraca weren't just scraps, they were a badge of honor. Students would scratch away practicing their symbols over and over until their fingers ached. Each shard was a tiny victory, a proof of progress. It's like how you might doodle in the margins of your notebook, except these doodles could lead to a job writing for the pharaoh. It's a peek at how medieval Egyptians turned the ordinary into the extraordinary, making do with what they had. A debate among scholars. Girls in the classroom. What about the girls, you ask? Well, that's where the grown-up historians start to squabble. Some say medieval Egyptian women had a better shot at learning than in many old societies. There are whispers of female scribes, women running businesses, even priestesses chanting sacred words, all jobs needing a sharp mind and a way with words. Papyrus scraps hint at ladies owning land or signing deals, which means they likely knew their letters. But others shake their heads, saying education was mostly a boys' club, with girls learning cooking or weaving at home. The truth: probably a mix. Some noble daughters got lessons, maybe even sat with tutors, while most followed a quieter path. It's a mystery that keeps us guessing, a window into a world where rules bent just a little. Threads to the past. Let's weave this back to where we've been. In Section 7, we wandered through bustling markets and trade routes. Those merchants needed quick wits to tally goods and haggle prices, skills sharpened in school. And those healers from Section 5, mixing potions and prayers. Many were priests trained in temple classrooms where they studied herbs, anatomy, and the magic of the gods. Education unlocked the body's secrets, letting them heal with both science and faith. Then there's Section 8's grand architecture. Those soaring temples and tombs didn't build themselves. Geometry and engineering learned by lamplight turned dreams into stone. Education was the golden thread stitching together trade, healing art, and life itself in medieval Egypt. Good night, little scholars. As the stars twinkle above and the night hugs us close, let's slip out of the classroom and tiptoe toward the homes of medieval Egyptians. Next time, we'll peek into their family life, how they fell in love, raised little ones, and celebrated the wild ride of living. It's a story of heart duty and maybe a few giggles. But for now, imagine yourself as a student under that desert moon, your mind buzzing with new ideas, your heart full of wonder. The lessons of long ago still whisper to us, a reminder that learning is a treasure, a bridge across time. So close your eyes, little scholars, and dream of ancient tales waiting to unfold. Hey there, little dreamers. Welcome back to our bedtime journey through the sands of time. Last night, we left off in the bustling classrooms of medieval Egypt, where young minds were shaped with hieroglyphs, numbers, and tales of the gods. But tonight, we're going to explore something even more magical: the role of women in this ancient world. Yes, the queens, the priestesses, the healers, and the everyday heroines who wove their own stories into the fabric of medieval Egyptian life. So snuggle up, maybe grab a warm drink, and let's uncover the hidden tales of the women who helped shape this incredible civilization. A quick look back. Before we dive in, let's take a quick stroll through where we've been. We started in the scorching deserts, learning how clever Egyptians turned sand into survival with their wells and shady tents. Then we peeked into their daily routines, baking bread, fetching water, and resting under the stars. We climbed their social ladder from pharaohs to farmers, each with a role to play. We knelt in awe at their temples, where gods and goddesses ruled the heavens and the earth. We visited the healer's den, where honey and herbs worked their magic. We danced and played under the moon, enjoying games and music. We whisked through bustling markets and trade routes where treasures from afar sparkled. We marveled at their art and architecture, pyramids, paintings, and temples that still stand tall. And just last time we sat in classrooms, scribbling on shards and dreaming of becoming scribes. Now, we're shining a light on the women who were part of it, all sometimes in the shadows, sometimes in the spotlight, but always essential. Queens, priestesses, and everyday wonders. So who were these women? In medieval Egypt, they weren't just sitting quietly at home, though some did that too, with a cup of mint tea and a good story. They were queens who ruled with wisdom, priestesses who spoke to the gods, healers who soothed the sick, and traders who bartered with the best of them. Let's start at the top. Remember the pharaohs from our social hierarchy tale? Well, sometimes a woman wore that crown. Take Hatshepsut, for example, a queen who declared herself pharaoh and ruled with a steady hand. She wasn't just a figurehead. She led armies, built grand temples, and sent ships to far-off lands for treasures like gold and incense. Her story shows that in medieval Egypt, power wasn't always a man's game. And even when they weren't ruling, women in noble families had clout. They managed estates, oversaw servants, and made sure the household ran like a well-oiled chariot. In the home, they were the queens of their own little kingdoms, keeping the family fed, clothed, and happy. But it wasn't just the elite who had influence. Let's talk about religion, where we once knelt in awe. Women could be priestesses, serving goddesses like Isis, the mother of magic, or Hathor, the lady of music and love. They led rituals, sang sacred songs, and kept the temples humming with devotion. Some even became high priestesses, wielding power that rivaled the men's. Picture a priestess draped in linen, her voice rising in prayer as incense swirls around her. She wasn't just a servant of the gods. She was a bridge between heaven and earth, her words carrying the hopes of the people, healers, traders, and artists. Now let's step into the healer's world, where we once sniffed honey and herbs. Women were often the ones mixing potions and tending to the sick. They were midwives, helping bring new life into the world, and herbalists brewing teas from plants they grew in their gardens. They knew which leaves soothed a fever and which roots eased a cough. Their knowledge was passed down through generations, a quiet wisdom that kept families healthy. And those quirky remedies, like mouse paste for coughs, well, it was often the women who stirred those strange brews, their hands steady and sure, probably giggling at the oddity of it all. What about leisure time when we danced by the Nile? Women were right there, playing games, singing songs, and telling stories. They might gather in courtyards, their laughter mingling with the strum of a lute, or sit by the river, teaching their children to weave or sew. They were the keepers of traditions, passing down dances and tales that kept the culture alive. And in the markets where we bartered for treasures, women were traders too. They sold breadcloth or pots. They'd made their voices sharp as they haggled for a fair price. Some even ran their own businesses, their stalls a testament to their savvy and skill. In the world of art and architecture, where we admired towering temples, women were weavers, painters, and potters. They spun linen into cloth so fine it felt like a whisper, dyed it in colors that sang of the river and sky, and painted scenes of daily life on walls and scrolls. Their hands shaped the beauty that surrounded them, from the humblest home to the grandest temple. While the big buildings might have been designed by men, it was often women who added the finishing touches, the intricate patterns, the delicate carvings that made them shine. Learning and legacy. Now, what about those classrooms we visited last time? Did women get to learn too? Well, it's a bit of a mystery, and the scholars love to debate it. Some say that noble daughters were taught to read and write, especially if they were destined for temple service or to manage estates. There are hints of women who could sign their names on contracts or read sacred texts. But for most girls, education was more practical learning to cook, weave, or care for children. Still, there were exceptions, like the legendary Seshat goddess of writing and wisdom, who inspired women to pick up the pen. It's a reminder that in medieval Egypt, knowledge wasn't always locked away. It sometimes found its way into unexpected hands, tying it all together. Let's weave all this together. The women of medieval Egypt were threads in a vast tapestry, each one adding strength and color to the whole. They were queens and priestesses, healers and traders, artists and storytellers. They might not always have held the reins of power, but they were the ones who kept the wheels turning, the fires burning, and the stories alive. In a world where survival was a daily challenge, their resilience was a quiet force that held families and communities together. They were the heartbeat of the home, the soul of the temple, and the spirit of the market. As the night grows deeper and the stars twinkle brighter, let's imagine ourselves walking through a medieval Egyptian village. We pass a woman kneading dough for tomorrows, bread, her hands strong and sure. Nearby, a priestess chants a prayer, her voice rising like smoke to the heavens. In the market, a trader counts her coins, her eyes sharp as she plans her next deal. And in a quiet corner, a mother tells her child a story of Isis and Osiris, her words weaving a spell of wonder. These are the women who shaped medieval Egypt, their lives a testament to strength, wisdom, and grace. Next time, we'll step into the world of their festivals and celebrations, where the whole community came together to honor the gods, the seasons, and each other. It's a tale of joy, color, and a little bit of mischief. But for now, let's close our eyes and dream of the women who walked these ancient sands, their stories whispering through the ages. Sweet dreams, little ones, may your night be as peaceful as a Nile breeze. Hello, little stargazers. Welcome back to our bedtime adventure through the golden sands of medieval Egypt. Last time we marveled at the women who wove the fabric of this ancient world, queens commanding respect, priestesses whispering to the gods, and mothers keeping homes alive with love and bread. Tonight we're stepping into a whirlwind of joy, where the air hums with music, the streets shimmer with color, and every heart beats a little faster. Imagine the scent of incense curling through the breeze, the sizzle of roasted meats, and laughter spilling from every corner. This was the magic of festivals in medieval Egypt, when everyone from the lofty pharaoh to the dusty-footed farmer came together to honor the gods, celebrate the seasons, and share in the wonder of life. So tuck in tight, and let's join the party. A bridge from the past. Before we leap into the festivities, let's glance back at our journey so far. We've roamed the desert, learning how Egyptians tamed the sands with clever wells and shady tents. We've peeked into their daily lives, kneading dough, hauling water, and napping under palm trees. We've climbed their social pyramid from pharaohs dripping in gold to peasants tending the fields. We've knelt in their temples where gods like Amun and Isis held court. We've mixed potions with their healers, danced to their music, and haggled in their markets. We've admired their towering temples and delicate paintings, sat in their classrooms, scribbling on shards, and celebrated their women's strength. Now, all these threads, survival faith, trade art, and community twist together in the dazzling tapestry of their festivals. Ready, let's go. The Opet Festival, a golden parade. First picture, the Opet Festival, a celebration so grand it lasted for weeks. This was a time to recharge the pharaoh's power and bless the land with fertility. The star of the show was a breathtaking procession. Golden boats, called barks, carried statues of the gods Amunmut and Khonsu from Karnak to Luxor Temple. The pharaoh led the way, his robes sparkling like the sun, while priests chanted ancient hymns. Crowds lined the streets, tossing flowers and waving palm fronds, their cheers rising like a wave. This wasn't just a parade, it was a promise between the gods, the king, and the people. Remember our social hierarchy. Here it shone bright with nobles in their finery up front, and commoners joining the joy from the sidelines, all united under the same sky. Wepet Renpet, a New Year's splash. Next, let's splash into Wepet Renpet, the New Year's festival timed with the Nile's annual flood. When the river swelled, painting the fields with life-giving water, the Egyptians rejoiced. This was a season of hope, a fresh start with rituals to coax a plentiful harvest from the earth. Families planted seeds in tiny pots, watching for green sprouts as a sign of good fortune. Feasts spilled over with bread and fruit music tinkled through the air, and offerings piled high for the gods. It tied back to those desert survival tricks we learned about. Without the Nile, there'd be no crops, no food, no life. Now it was time to thank the river, with a party proving even the humblest farmer had a stake in the celebration. The festival of Bastet purring with joy. For a dash of mischief, we have the festival of Bastet honoring the cat goddess of joy and protection. Oh, what a riot of color and sound. The streets pulsed with drums and flutes, and people twirled in their brightest clothes, faces painted with swirls of red and gold. Cats' bastets, sacred friends, strutted about, draped in tiny jewels, purring as if they owned the day. Dancing spilled into the night, and laughter was the loudest hymn. Women those stars, from our last tale, often led the fun-singing swaying and pampering the felines. It was a festival where rules softened, and even the grumpiest scribe might wiggle a toe to the beat. The beautiful feast of the valley. A quiet glow. Not every celebration was loud. The beautiful feast of the valley was a tender, glowing moment when families visited their ancestors' tombs. They'd bring baskets of bread, jars of beer, and bouquets of flowers, then picnic in the shade of stone monuments. Stories of grandparents and great-grandparents whispered through the air, linking the living to the past. The art we once admired, those carved tombs and painted walls, stood proud here, framing a day of memory and love. It was quieter than the Opet parade, but no less special, a soft thread tying Egypt's people to their roots. Quirky twists, tipsy gods, and clever disguises. Now for some giggles. During the festival of drunkenness, folks drank beer and wine until the world spun all to honor Hathor, goddess of love and joy. They believed a tipsy heart could chat with the divine, so even priests might wobble home with silly grins. And in other festivals, people donned masks and costumes Imagine a baker as falcon-headed Horus, or a kid scampering as a straw-maned lion. These quirks turned ordinary days into magic, blurring the line between human and God with a wink and a laugh, weaving the web. These festivals weren't standalone spectacles, they stitched together everything we've learned. The trade routes we traced brought treasures to the party merchants, hawked amulets, spices, and sticky festival sweets. The art and architecture dazzled with temples draped in garlands and new statues unveiled to gasps. Women shone bright from priestesses chanting prayers to cooks stirring pots of feast day stew. And that social ladder, it bent a little pharaohs and nobles led the grand rites, but farmers and fishers had their own dances and songs, proving joy belonged to everyone. A whispered debate. Here's a secret for the curious historians still squabble over these festivals. Was Bastet's Day all holy devotion, or just a big excuse to prance about? Some say every step was a prayer. Others swear it was pure fun with a side of faith. Maybe it was both. Egyptians loved their gods, but they loved a good time too. Like friends sharing a joke, piety and play danced together, leaving us a riddle wrapped in revelry. Sweet dreams await. As the moon climbs high, and the night grows soft, let's linger in this festive glow. Hear the drums, smell the incense, feel the crowds hum. In medieval Egypt, festivals were a heartbeat, loud, wild, tender, true. Next time, we'll chase myths and legends, where gods tussled with monsters and heroes carved their names in the stars. But for now, close your eyes, little revelers. Dream of parades and painted faces of a world where every day could bloom into celebration. Good night. May your slumber sparkle like an Egyptian FTE, hello little night owls. Welcome back to our bedtime journey through the golden sands of medieval Egypt. Last night we danced and sang through the vibrant festivals that brought the whole community together, honoring the gods, celebrating the seasons, and sharing in the joy of life. But have you ever wondered where those festivals came from? What stories whispered through the air as the drums beat and the incense curled? Tonight, we're going to explore the myths and legends that were the heartbeat of these celebrations and the soul of medieval Egyptian culture. So snuggle up, maybe grab a warm drink, and let's dive into the magical tales that shape this ancient world. A quick look back. Before we begin, let's take a moment to remember where we've been. We started our adventure in the scorching deserts, learning how clever Egyptians survived with their wells and shady tents. We peeked into their daily lives baking bread, fetching water, and resting under the stars. We climbed their social ladder from pharaohs to farmers, each with a role to play. We knelt in their temples, where gods like Amun and Isis held court. We mixed potions with their healers, danced to their music, and haggled in their markets. We admired their towering temples and delicate paintings, sat in their classrooms, scribbling on shards, celebrated their women's strength, and joined their festivals. Now we're going to uncover the stories that tied it all together, the myths and legends that explained the world, taught lessons, and kept the magic alive. The story of Isis and Osiris, a tale of love and rebirth. Let's start with one of the most famous myths of all, the story of Isis and Osiris. This tale was like the North Star of Egyptian mythology, guiding everything from festivals to daily life. It begins with Osiris, the wise and kind king of Egypt, who taught his people how to farm, build, and live in harmony. But his brother, Set, jealous and cunning, plotted against him. Set tricked Osiris into a beautiful chest, sealed it shut, and cast it into the Nile. Osiris drowned, and Set became king. But Osiris' wife Isis refused to let his story end there. With her magic and her love, she searched the world for his body, found it, and brought him back to life long enough to conceive a son, Horus. Osiris then became the ruler of the underworld, while Horus grew up to challenge Set and reclaim his father's throne. This story wasn't just a thrilling adventure, it was a promise of rebirth, a reminder that even in death, life could spring anew. It's why the Opet festival we talked about last time was so important. It celebrated the renewal of the pharaoh's power, just like Osiris' resurrection, myths as moral compasses and explainers of the world. But myths like these weren't just for fun, they were the Egyptians' way of making sense of the world. Why does the Nile flood every year? Well, it's Isis weeping for Osiris, her tears swelling the river to bring life to the land. Why does the sun rise and set? That's Ra, the sun, God sailing his boat across the sky each day and battling the serpent of chaos each night. These stories explain the mysteries of nature and taught important lessons. Take the tale of Mot, the goddess of truth and balance. Her feather weighed against the hearts of the dead to see if they'd lived a good life. It was a gentle nudge to be kind, honest, and fair, because one day you'd face that scale. These myths were like bedtime stories for the soul, passed down through generations, keeping the culture's heart beating strong. Storytelling under the stars. Now, how did these stories spread? Well, long before books or screens, they were shared by word-of-mouth, grandparents whispering to wide-eyed children, by the fire priests chanting in temples, or traders swapping tales in the market. Remember those bustling trade routes we explored earlier? Merchants didn't just carry goods. They carried stories, too, like invisible treasures tucked in their packs. And those grand temples and tombs we admired, they were like giant storybooks, their walls carved and painted with scenes from these myths. Osiris rising Isis, spreading her wings, Horus battling Set. Every stroke of the artist's brush was a chapter in Egypt's great saga. Myths in daily life, names, amulets, and more. These legends didn't just live in temples or stories, they were woven into everyday life. Parents named their children after gods and heroes, hoping to pass on their strength or wisdom. A little girl might be called Isis, a boy named Horus, each name a tiny prayer for protection. And remember those quirky healing remedies we talked about. Many were tied to myths, like using a charm shaped like the eye of Horus to ward off sickness, believing its magic could see and banish evil. Amulets carved with gods, symbols dangled from necks, or were tucked into pockets, little shields against life's bumps and bruises. It was as if the myths walked beside them, a comforting shadow in the sun. A quirky tidbit, myths that traveled the world. Here's something to make you smile. These stories didn't stay put in Egypt. They hopped on ships and camels, sneaking into other lands and hearts. The tale of Isis and Osiris, it wiggled its way into Greek and Roman myths, dressing up as Demeter and Persephone. Even today, you might spot echoes of Egyptian legends in fairy tales or movies, heroes reborn gods in disguise battles between good and evil. It's like a whisper from the past, still tickling our ears. A scholarly mystery, piecing together the past. But here's where the grown-ups start to puzzle. Historians and archaeologists have dug through sands and scrolls to uncover these myths, but it's like assembling a jigsaw with missing pieces. Some stories are clear, etched in stone, or scribbled on papyrus. Others are whispers, half lost to time. There's a whole world of gods and tales we might never know, buried under centuries of dust. It's a reminder that history is a treasure hunt with clues scattered like stars across the sky, threads to the future. As we near the end of our tale, let's look ahead. These myths didn't just shape festivals or names, they crowned the pharaohs who were seen as living gods, Horus on earth. Next time, we'll step into their palaces where power and myth dance together in a delicate balance. But for now, let's linger in the land of legends, where gods walked among mortals and stories were the truest magic of all. Sweet dreams await. The night is deep, and the stars are winking down at us. Let's close our eyes and imagine ourselves by the Nile, listening to the soft lap of water and the distant hum of a storyteller's voice. In medieval Egypt, myths were more than tales. They were the glue that held the world together, the spark that lit the imagination. So as you drift off, little dreamers, let the gods and heroes cradle you into sleep. Dream of Isis's wings, Osiris' smile, and the endless dance of the sun across the sky. Good night. May your dreams be as timeless as an Egyptian legend. Hello, little dreamers. Welcome back to our cozy bedtime journey through the shimmering sands of medieval Egypt. Last night, we wandered through a world of myths, where gods like Osiris and Isis spun tales of wonder under the starlit sky. But tonight, we're turning our eyes to the brave souls who guarded this magical land. Picture warriors with gleaming swords, chariots racing across the dunes, and a courage as vast as the desert itself. Snuggle in tight, and let's uncover the secrets of the military might that kept Egypt's heart beating strong. A bridge from myths to might. Before we charge into battle, let's pause by the firelight and recall where we've been. We've survived the desert's heat with clever wells and shady tents risen with the sun to bake bread and weave linen and bowed to pharaohs and priests in their grand hierarchy. We've prayed to Amun in golden temples, healed with herbs, danced to flutes, and traded spices along dusty roads. We've marveled at towering obelisks, scribbled lessons on potsherds, honored the strength of women, clapped at festivals, and whispered myths of creation. Now, those myths like Sekhmet, the fierce war goddess, come alive, stepping from stories into the clash of swords and shields. The warriors we're about to meet weren't just fighters. They were the shield of everything we've explored, protectors of a world woven from sand and dreams. The pharaoh's army, a force of order and glory. Imagine the pharaoh, a living god atop his throne, his voice a thunderclap that summoned an army to rise. This wasn't a ragtag band, but a disciplined force, as precise as the stone blocks of a pyramid. Generals, often nobles, from that social ladder we climbed, planned every move, while soldiers, some full-time, some farmers with spears in hand, stood ready. It was a tapestry of unity, where the humblest worker could march beside a lord's son, all bound by loyalty to the crown. This army wasn't just muscle. It was the backbone of a society that thrived on order, faith, and the flow of trade. Weapons and armor, crafted for battle, blessed by belief. What did these warriors carry into the fray? Their swords curved like the crescent moon, sharp enough to slice the wind while spears flew like arrows or stabbed with deadly aim. Shields of wood or leather painted with snarling lions or soaring falcons warded off blows, and their armor linen tunics thickened with padding kept them light on their feet. The elite might gleam in bronze helmets or chest plates, but here's a delightful twist. Many tuck tiny charms into their gear. An eye of Horus for protection, a scarab for luck. These were whispers of the religion we've explored, as if the gods themselves rode into battle alongside them. Tactics and strategies. Outsmarting the sands battles weren't won by strength alone. Oh no, these Egyptians were as cunning as desert foxes. Their generals plotted like storytellers, weaving plans that turned the land to their favor. Chariots swift as the Nile's current darted across the battlefield, horses pounding the earth. Archers loosed storms of arrows, while foot soldiers locked shields in tight ranks, a moving wall of defiance. The river we've sailed in trade tales. It became a weapon too, with boats slipping silently to strike or block enemy supplies. Every tactic tied back to survival and trade, proving that brains were as mighty as bronze. Battles and sieges, where valor met the sun. Close your eyes and picture it. Two armies staring across a sun-scorched plain, dust swirling like a restless spirit. The Egyptians raise their banners, voices lifted in a chant to Sekhmet, her lions roar, echoing in their hearts. Then crash chariots, thunder arrows, sing, and swords clash in a symphony of war. Some fights ended in a blaze of glory. Others stretched into sieges, where patience outlasted stone walls. These weren't just skirmishes. They were the heartbeat of a land fighting to protect its markets, temples, and myths from invaders bold enough to challenge the pharaoh's will. A thread of connection, from war to daily life. The military didn't vanish when the dust settled. These warriors were woven into the fabric of the Egypt we've come to know. Soldiers earned land or gold, some rising high enough to advise the pharaoh himself, another rung on that social ladder. In peacetime, they guarded caravans laden with goods from our trade tales or built forts to shield the desert's edge. Their presence ensured the wells stayed safe, the festivals uninterrupted, and the healers free to mix their potions. Without them, the harmony of this world could crumble like sand in the wind. A scholarly debate, legends or lessons. Now let's listen to the wise ones argue by candlelight. Some say Egypt's army was a terror, its strategies so brilliant they echoed across empires. Others mutter that defeats and part-time soldiers left gaps in their armor. It's a riddle wrapped in a scroll. Did their might match their myths? We may never know the full tale, but their blend of faith, cunning, and grit left a mark as enduring as the Sphinx. What do you think, little dreamers? Were they heroes or just humans doing their best? Looking ahead, from swords to scepters. As the campfire fades, let's peek into tomorrow. The military guarded more than land, it guarded power. Soon we'll step into the pharaoh's court, where whispers of politics and the weight of rule shaped Egypt's destiny. The warriors' swords paved the way for the scepters of kings, and we'll follow that path next time. For now, let their courage linger in the air, a promise of protection as vast as the night sky. Sweet dreams. Under the warriors' watch. The moon is high and the desert whispers good night. Imagine standing on a dune watching the soldiers' torches flicker like stars below. In medieval Egypt, the military was a shield, a song of bravery sung in metal and sweat. As you drift to sleep, let them stand sentinel over your dreams, chariots rolling banners high and a quiet strength that cradles this ancient land. Good night, little dreamers. May your slumber be as safe as a fortress and as sweet as a desert breeze. Hello, little stargazers. Welcome back to our bedtime journey through the golden sands of medieval Egypt. Last night we stood with the warriors who guarded this magical land, their swords gleaming under the desert sun. But tonight we're stepping into the halls of power, where laws were written, justice was served, and the pharaoh's word was as mighty as the Nile itself. So snuggle up, maybe grab a warm drink, and let's explore the world of governance and law in medieval Egypt. A bridge from warriors to rulers, Before we dive into the world of rulers and scrolls, let's take a sandy step back to where we've been. We've wandered through this land together, little dreamers surviving the desert with clever wells and shady tents, baking bread in bustling homes, and bowing to pharaohs and priests in their towering hierarchy. We've traded spices along dusty roads, prayed in golden temples, danced at festivals, and whispered myths under starlit skies. We've even stood shoulder to shoulder with warriors, their armor clinking as they kept the land safe. Now it's time to see how all these pieces, survival, faith, trade art, and strength, were held together by the hands of governance like a grand tapestry, stitched with golden thread. The pharaoh, a god-king's rule. At the tip-top of this sandy kingdom sat the pharaoh, a ruler unlike any other. He wasn't just a king with a crown. He was a god walking among mortals, his voice a whisper from the heavens. His palace sparkled with painted walls, scenes of battles won, and gods praised, and his courtiers buzzed around him like bees in a hive. But even a god-king didn't rule alone. He had helpers, viziers with sharp minds, priests with sacred words, and generals with steely gazes. These were the nobles we met on our social ladder, the ones who climbed high enough to stand by his side. Together, they wrote laws that reached every corner of Egypt, laws about taxes, how much grain you owed, laws about crimes, don't steal that camel, and laws about honoring the gods, always say thank you to Amun. It was a system as twisty and beautiful as the Nile's curves. Laws carved in stone and heart. So what did these laws look like? They were a blend of practical rules and divine promises. Some kept the peace. If you snatched a loaf of bread from the market, you might lose a hand. And if you fibbed in front of the vizier, you'd get a stern punishment, maybe even a real tongue twister. Others were about fairness. Workers got paid what they were owed, and widows could keep their husband's patch of land. Then there were the sacred laws: skip a temple offering, and the gods might frown. Praise the pharaoh's name, and the world stayed sunny. These weren't just scribbles on papyrus. They were the heartbeat of Egypt, a pact between the people, their king, and the gods above. Justice in the shadow of Mot. Now imagine a courtroom, not with dusty books and wigs, but with priests and officials gathered under the gentle gaze of Mot, the goddess of truth. She held a feather light as a breeze and weighed every heart against it. In her shadow, justice unfolded. People brought their quarrels. Maybe a farmer cheated on a grain deal, or a trader swore a necklace was pure gold when it wasn't. Witnesses chattered, evidence was poked and prodded, and sometimes they'd swear oaths on sacred statues, no lying when the gods are watching. Punishments could sting: whippings, fines, or a lonely trip to the desert, but they were all about fixing the balance Mot loved so much. And if you thought the verdict was unfair, you could beg the pharaoh himself to listen, for he was the final word, the keeper of right and wrong. Threads of connection, from laws to daily life. These laws didn't just sit in fancy scrolls, they danced through every part of life. Remember those markets where we sniffed spices and jingled coins? Laws made sure every trade was honest grain sacks, weighed just right, gold shining true. The healers we met stirring their herb potions followed rules too: no funny business with unapproved plants. Even the festivals with their twirling dancers and tasty treats happened when the pharaoh said so, timed to the god's own calendar. And those warriors we cheered for, they swore oaths to the pharaoh, their swords raised under his laws. Governance was the glue, the magic string tying every adventure we've had into one big, beautiful story. A quirky tidbit: laws with a wink. Here's a little giggle for you. Not every law was serious and stern. One rule said, You couldn't curse a god out loud. Imagine the trouble if you stubbed your toe and blamed Ra. Another protected cats, those fluffy friends from Bastet's festival. Hurt one and you'd be in big trouble because who'd dare upset a goddess's favorite pet? It's a reminder that even in a land of stone pyramids and fierce warriors, there was a sprinkle of silliness and a whole lot of love. A scholarly debate power and the people let sneak into a shadowy corner where the wise ones argue by flickering lamplight. Some say the pharaoh's power was as solid as the pyramids, no one dared question him. Others nudge us and whisper that the people had a say too. Village elders sorted out small spats, and ordinary folk could send pleas to the palace. Was the pharaoh a mighty mountain, or did the people's voices ripple like the Nile? Maybe it was a bit of both. Balance as tricky as Mot's feather, keeping Egypt strong and steady. Looking ahead, from laws to legacy, as the moon climbs high, let's peek at what's coming next. These laws didn't just rule medieval Egypt. They left echoes that bounced through time, shaping kings and dreamers far beyond the desert. Tomorrow night, we'll chase their legacy, seeing how this land's wonders still sing to us today. But for now, let's rest in these halls of justice, where Mot's scales tip and sway, and the pharaoh's wisdom wraps around us like a warm blanket. Sweet dreams. Under the pharaohs, watch. The stars wink above, and the desert hums its lullaby. Picture yourself in the pharaoh's court, a little dreamer among the grand pillars, feeling the weight of history and the glow of justice. In medieval Egypt, governance wasn't just rules, it was a song of order, a dance of power and kindness. As you drift off, let the pharaoh's strength guard you, and Mot's feather tickle your dreams. Good night, my little travelers. May your sleep be as calm as the Nile at dusk. Hello, little dreamers. Welcome back one last time to our bedtime tale of medieval Egypt, a land of golden sands and timeless wonders. We've traveled far together, haven't we, through deserts that shimmered under a fierce sun, past villages humming with life, and into the shadows of grand temples. Now, as the stars peek out and the night wraps us in its quiet embrace, let's gather all the threads of our journey. Survival, faith, work, and joy, and weave them into a soft blanket of memory. Settle in, close your eyes, and let the gentle whispers of this ancient world carry you to sleep. The deserts, song of survival. Our story began in the vast, endless desert, where the sun blazed and the sand stretched like an ocean of gold. But the Egyptians, clever and brave, turned this harsh land into a home. With wells dug deep into the earth and tents pitched against the wind, they found water and shade the first notes of their survival song. The Nile flowed nearby, a ribbon of life through the dryness, its floods bringing rich soil for crops and cool waters for weary hands. Every day they worked with the rivers, rhythm planting, harvesting, resting, proving that even in the toughest places life could bloom. And as the desert taught them strength, it led us to their daily lives, a bridge of simple joys connecting one sunrise to the next. The rhythm of daily life. In the glow of dawn, their villages woke with a yawn, bread baked in clay ovens, water drawn from the river children scampering through the dust. The day moved like a slow dance, farmers tending fields, artisans shaping clay, and traders calling out in the markets. At noon, they rested under palm trees, sipping cool drinks and sharing tales, then returned to their tasks as the sun dipped low. Night fell soft and slow, with families gathered around flickering lamps, spinning stories of gods and heroes. It was a life of balance, each moment a step in the quiet music of their days. That music played through their society too, linking every soul from the highest palace to the humblest hut, a society woven together. Picture their world like a great tapestry, every thread in its place. At the top sat the pharaoh, a living god, in a golden crown, his word shaping the land. Below him, nobles and priests held court, while scribes scribbled laws and dreams on papyrus. Farmers and laborers with hands rough from work fed the nation their toil as precious as any jewel. It was a ladder of rank, but also a circle of needy person, vital each life honored. Faith tied them close with gods like Amun and Isis, watching from the heavens their temples rising like mountains of stone and story. Those temples pull us gently into the heart of their beliefs, where religion and art danced as one, faith art and healing hands. In the cool shadows of those temples, they knelt to pray, offering thanks to Ra, who carried the sun, and Ma'at, who weighed their hearts with a feather of truth. Art adorned every wall paintings of battles myths and harvests carved with care to last forever. It wasn't just beauty. It was a bridge to the divine, a way to speak to the gods. Nearby healers worked their quiet magic, mixing herbs with honey, whispering spells to mend broken bodies. Faith and knowledge blended here, a soothing balm for both soul and skin, showing how deeply they trusted the unseen. That trust stretched beyond their borders, carried by traders whose journeys tied Egypt to the world, trade and the world beyond. Down dusty paths and across swaying ships, traders brought treasures, spices that tickled the nose silks that shimmered like water, and tales from lands far away. Markets buzzed with their voices, coins clinking like little songs, each exchange a thread connecting Egypt to distant horizons. It was more than trade. It was a sharing of dreams, a reminder that their desert home was part of a vast, breathing world. Camels plodded home at dusk, their packs lighter, but their stories heavier, weaving the outside into the fabric of daily life. And who held that fabric steady? The women whose strength flowed like the Nile itself, the quiet power of women. Women were the heartbeat of this world, their hands kneading dough, weaving cloth, and soothing restless babes. Some ruled as queens, their voices echoing in courts. Others served as priestesses, tending sacred flames. In homes and markets, they traded healed and taught their wisdom as deep as the river's currents. They were the roots beneath the sand unseen, but strong, keeping families and traditions alive. Their laughter rang out at festivals, linking us to the joy that lit up their days. Those festivals burst forth like stars tying celebration to the stories they loved, festivals and timeless tales. When the harvest came or the Nile rose, the land erupted in song. Festivals filled the air with music, dance, and the scent of roasted feasts, a thank you to the gods and each other. Myths came alive here, Isis searching for Osiris, Horus guarding the sky told in plays and whispered by fires. These weren't just tales. They were the heartbeat of Egypt, explaining the world's mysteries and promising hope. Children clapped, elders smiled, and for a moment time paused in the glow of shared wonder. But peace needed guardians, and so we turned to the warriors and laws that kept the land safe. Warriors and the rule of order. Warriors stood tall, their shields glinting like the sun ready to defend the Nile's banks. Under the pharaoh's command, they marched with courage, their loyalty a wall against chaos. Laws guided them, written by scribes, and upheld with a balance of justice and mercy rooted in the myths of Ma'at. It was order with a heartbeat, ensuring every farmer, every trader, every child could sleep soundly. Together, warriors and laws wove a net of safety, letting life hum on beneath the stars, a whisper from the past. Now, as the night deepens, can you hear it? The soft echo of this world pyramids, standing silent temples, murmuring prayers, stories drifting on the wind. Medieval Egypt was more than a place. It was a way of living, a blend of grit and grace, of faith and wonder. It feels far away, yet close enough to touch, as if we could sit by the Nile and feel its cool breath on our faces, the same stars winking above, drifting to sleep. Imagine it now, a village by the river at dusk, the sky painted with the last blush of day. The Nile laps gently, a lullaby of water and wind. The day's work fades, lamps flicker out, and a mother's voice hums a tune older than time. The air is soft, the world is still, and peace settles like a warm blanket. Close your eyes, little dreamers, and let this ancient land cradle you. Let the desert, the river, the gods, and the people drift into a golden haze, their stories tucked safe in your heart. Good night, sweet travelers. May your dreams glow as bright as Egypt's sun and as deep as its endless night.